Eros indicates your desire for other people and how much you desire for other people, and also your match with other people. And it also indicates fatal attraction, which can be a good thing and can also be a bad thing. Honestly, it's 50-50. And what I mean by this is that there are four strong-ish connect. Well, there's I would say there's two, three major connections and two very good connections with your eros, and I'm going to explain to you what they are. Now, number one connection: if it's in the same sign. Now, for example, if you have an eros and the other person has a psyche, in the same sign, yours is eros, there's a psyche, or yours is psyche and there's an eros in the same sign, this is a potential fatal attraction. What happens here is, what happens here is that you and the other person have this internal stimulus happening that you may not even be aware of. Okay, you may not even be aware of this type of internal stimulus if you're not truly connected to your body. When you are truly connected to your body, you can truly understand it. But if you're not, it's a 50-50 thing. Sometimes you don't, sometimes you miss it, sometimes you don't even know what's going on. But you can tell you like this person somehow, some way, even if you're not completely physically attracted to that person. But the more time you spend with that person, the more intensity it will grow, 100%. And this is if your eros is in one sign. Let's say your eros is in Cancer, and that person's psyche is in Cancer. Let's say your eros is in Scorpio, and that person's psyche is in Scorpio. Let's say your eros is in Pisces, and that person Pisces is in Psyche. This is fatal. And what happens here with this type of attraction is that it can actually, it can ruin relationships, because you may come across someone who has that, and you do have these intense desires towards this other person, you know, especially if they have other things that link well with your chart. If you have other compatibilities with the sun and the moon, sun and Venus, um, Venus and Mars, etc., etc. If there's other things linking, plus you have the same eros and psyche, it's going to cause a problem, because you're going to be fatally attracted to this person, whether you like it or not. Whether you can control it or not is a different story. The best thing you can do is avoid. If you're in a relationship, avoid the person, because that person is going to mesmerize you some way, somehow. So it's best to just avoid if you come across this type of connection if you're in a relationship. If you're not, obviously, this is very good for you. This is what type of relationship you want. But the thing with the eros and psyche, same sign connection, is that it can be too intense. Now, you do feel this ultimate connection and this soulmate type of feeling with each other, but the intensity of being around each other, wanting to spend all the time with each other, wanting to just connect daily, nightly, hourly, in fact, it's too much. It's too much, and it can spill over into toxicity. You know, sometimes too much of something is not a good thing. That's the facts. Okay. Another connection, if it's in the same element. If it's in the same element. Now, what do I mean by that? So, if your Eros is in Aries and the other person's psyche is in Sagittarius, this will click. If your Eros is in Capricorn and the other person's psyche is in Virgo, it's in the same element. If your Eros is in, I don't know, pick a sign, Libra, and your psyche is in Gemini, it's going to click. If it's in the same element, it's going to click. But this one does come under the fatal attraction scope, but I would say it will never get to the point where it's too unhealthy, like the same sign, Eros and Psyche. I think this one is a little bit more balanced, a little bit more easier, a little bit more of an understanding. Okay, you have a little bit more of an understanding, a little bit more of a connection. Right? This is what it is. You have the connection, the intimate connection is not overwhelming. It's just at a nice, with enough spice to keep it going. But again, this is fatal because sometimes if you have a strong connection like this, it can cause issues. You can, become slightly obsessed. These things happen many times. The obsessions from people when they meet someone who understands them intimately, so deeply and so connectively. When you get these types of connections, it's fatal. It can be fatal. You can start to lose your mind. You can start to overthink, overstress. It overwhelms you completely. So with these types of connections, with the Eros psychic connections, it's dangerous. It's a dangerous connection. It's not the most healthiest connection. It has to be balanced, and you have to have other placements, like I said, with the sun and everything in there. But it's very intense, no doubt, and you will enjoy your time. Another one is if it's 5 or 7 signs away. Now, if it's 5 or 7 signs away, which is basically the same thing, if you really understand the pattern of the circle of astrology, it's 5 and 7 is basically the same. But if it's 5 signs away, you're either going to really, really not want to be around that person, or it's going to be really a fatal attraction where you just are into that person completely and you want that person completely. And you're not even sure why, but you know you do. And the more you connect, the more you want it. It's really simple. It's called a Quincuts connection. And this is it's dangerous because it's fatal because of the fact that whenever you get, like, sometimes when this connection connects, first of all, it seems to be that one or both of the people are in a situation that isn't healthy for them. Most of the time, this is what happens when it's 5 or 7 signs away. They're in a situation that is not healthy for them and it's not the best thing for them. So when they come across each other, this is why they click, as well as the Quincuts, because of it's just how Quincuts seem to connect. 5 signs away seems to connect. It just, someone's in an unhealthy situation, they connect, and then they get things going from there. It's really that simple. I would say that it's this match doesn't beat the drum as well as the other two. Okay, because these two are like intimately cosmic. But what this has that these two don't is true bondage. It's very strange, but this bondage cannot be close to the intensity level as this. But their bondage is true, nevertheless. The understanding is true, nevertheless. The care, the thoughts, the feelings, is understood completely. They completely just kind of get, like, and this would be, for example, if your Eros is in uh, Gemini and your Psyche is in Scorpio. This would be if your Eros is in Aries and the Psyche is Virgo. This would be if your Eros is in Pisces and the Psyche is Libra. You see what I'm saying? It's 5 signs away, and that's where the connection lies. Now there are two other connections which aren't as strong, but it still kicks off, but they're not as powerful as these three, and they're not as fatal because these three type of connections are the relationship breakers more than any other connection in the zodiac. These three break relationships. So if the Eros is in the same sign as the Psyche, if the Eros is in the same element as the Psyche, and if the Eros is 5 signs or 7 signs away from the Psyche, this is they were relationships. But the other two are, for example, same gender, non-element, not element. Yeah, so that would be like, for example, if it's a Eros in Cancer, it would be Taurus in Psyche, it would be Virgo in Psyche. Yeah, if it's an let's say a Libra in Eros, it would be a Leo in Psyche, or it would be a Sagittarius in Psyche. You follow me? So it's in the same gender, as in the same feminine sign or masculine sign, but not in the same element and not the opposite. Because the other one is opposite. Oh, opposite. I don't even know if I spelled that right. Opposite. Um, which we all know, opposite signs. Now, these two, they do actually have a connection. They do. It's not fatal, but definitely the connection is there. There is no doubt about it. But it's just not as strong as the first three. Where you might enjoy yourself, you might have a good time, but what it is with these three, like, can have that in the relationship, in the connection, in the compatibility only, and be very strong. Where these two would have to have more in order for it to really kick off properly. If it's an opposite sign, obviously opposite signs are like, it's a 50-50 situation. It's enjoyable and it's not enjoyable. They do things that you do like, and then they do things that you don't like. It's just a 50-50 situation. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. What can you do? Same gender is a little bit better than opposites, but it's not as intense, and the feeling is not really truly there, and it's not enough sometimes to survive the relationship, because these three are so much bigger, and that the people have more potential of meeting people who have stronger connections than you and that person with the same gender, not the same element type of connection. If you follow me there. So that is how to know what fatal attraction is. You're playing with fire, you probably get burnt, especially if it's in the same sign, because when it's in the same sign, because it's so intense, if someone ever does something wrong to that person, there's no forgiveness involved, because the feeling was so strong. So you're playing with fire, but at the same time, it can be a beautiful, beautiful thing. Have a great day.